You shouldn't think, well, so and so, Good Leap always picks them up. Well, if they don't, that don't mean you're done. You keep going. You're gonna run Synchrony, you're gonna run Ally, you're gonna run whoever it is, Turns if you have to. They're releasing or other second look companies. That's what you do in the impoverished area. Just don't lay there and take it, man. You got to get up and fight. And it hurts sometimes because you want it to be somebody else's fault so bad.
So, hey, everybody, I am thrilled today to be here with Tony Cooper from Cooper's Plumbing and Air in Bainbridge, Georgia. They also have an office in Tallahassee, Florida. Tony, as I've gotten to know him over the last couple of weeks, is just an amazing entrepreneur with tons and tons of valuable information to share with everybody here. So, Tony, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for inviting me on. This is my first podcast, so I'm kind of excited about it.
That's excellent. I love that because everything that you're going to be sharing is going to be completely new. And since it is your first podcast, could you please share, what are some of the highlights in your business in the last couple of years, just so people understand why they should be paying attention.
Well, I'll take you a little bit further back than that. I joined my dad in the business back in 2002, and our revenues were somewhere around 100 some thousand back then. And my dad and I grew it together all the way up to a little over 1 million in 2015, and then from 2015 on, I've been running by myself as a sole owner. And we've been recently, but grew it from the last 3 years from 4 million to 8 million, and then we just finished the year at 11 million, and we're running double digit profits, and everybody's having a lot of fun. We're really doing a lot of things, and we have set a goal this year, 2025, to do 25. Well, our BHAG, they call it, big hairy audacious goal, is 25 cubed, 25 million, 25% net in 2025. But we've actually written a kind of a promise budget for 21 million. And that's what everything's lining up to make sure we nail down this $21 million. And that's actually how I met Michael, is in my search for partners to really fix this marketing bottleneck, lead flow bottleneck that we have. That we've identified that as one of the biggest problems to achieving that goal. How's that?
Excellent. I'm impressed, but I was already impressed. I mean, it's so wild. People talk a lot about like overnight successes, and then you dive in, and it's like, yeah, 20 years in the making, and that's what I'm really hearing. 2002 to 2015, $1 million. I mean, 13 years basically to get to a million. And then, in the last 4 years to go, well, in the last 3 years to go from 4 to 11, that's close to 3Xing. And then this year, the plan, the big, hairy, audacious goal is to more than double, and hit 25 million. So how has that been for you in terms of like, this long tail of like just slow growth to now, it accelerating? What's that been like?
It's really interesting because I remember I used to think it was a big deal to have a $40,000 payroll cycle, and now we're pushing this every 2 weeks. Now our payroll cycle runs 80 to 100,000, and then every number we have spent as much as 60,000 on Google pay per click. And I remember when I used to check my checking account, when I had $5,000 in my checking account, I would go look at it just because I thought that's a lot of money, and I would check my app. And almost before apps were really a big thing back then, only bankers had apps back then. But so it's really been quite a ride, and it's happened recent, I would say, so quickly that some of it feels a little bit surreal. I think that's how it's been.
That's
It
amazing.
really has.
Yeah, well, you spend enough time at the top, I think you'll start realizing this is just the reality of things, is what you've built. And but it hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about the time when you would have given it all away?
So there was, as I was coming up through the years prior to 2015, I was with my father, my uncle, and my cousin were the key players in the business. My dad wanted to retire. He would retire from the Air Force, started the business, and then we built it together. He retired, and then shortly after that, my uncle retired, and then it was just my cousin and I working together. However, for some reason, and I want to take responsibility. I must have done something wrong in the way I was working with him or leading, but we got sideways, and ended up that he quit the business, but not before kind of letting things fall to pieces. I really wanted him to be almost like a partner and run the thing for me. When he quit, he left with no notice. Prior to that told me he was not going to go into business for himself. My dad and I both signed for his license, which was not a problem because he signing for a license is about competency, not about whether they owe you something or not. But at that time, he said he was never going to go into business for himself. It come to find out that was always his plan. And then when he quit, he took several key employees, and even to this day, every person that does work for him or has worked for him did work for us.
Mm.
And so right after that, I had my dad retired, my uncle retired, my cousin quit, and actively trying to um, do make it a negative impact to try to keep it at as high
Yeah.
level as possible. All that happened at the same time, and that was a pretty low point. That was the lowest point in the business that we had, and that was the one. And I had one other. Don't know how much time you have, but I have one other pretty low point as well. But that one when my cousin left, and the business was losing money, and it really required a lot of effort to get it back on track.
How much was it losing like per month?
I don't know. I've seen we're probably running between 1 and 2 million top line revenue annually, and we'd have a month that might lose $40,000.
Ah,
Yeah, and that we didn't have it wasn't month after month after month, but I've
yeah.
seen that.
Yeah, that's really painful. It's really like nerve wracking. And then you
It
said
is.
there was another issue with GM running backwards.
Yeah, so I had always had a goal to have a business that would self-operate. And so I had another guy who was a key employee, a longtime guy, very loyal guy, and a great guy and a smart guy. And I kind of gave him the keys. He really wanted to do it. He thought he could do it, and I wanted him to do it. So I said, go for it. And I kind of backed out. And it was a situation where his competency level just wasn't, he couldn't cover all the bases. And we had gotten to kind of a high water mark of around 4 million, 4.2. I'm not sure the exact number, top line, whenever I handed it over. And then he ran it backwards to around 3 million. And, the profitability was eroding. And during that cycle, I had to, I kind of let him have it. And then I backed out and had to get back in and straighten it out and come back in. Well, the last time, the way that because I wanted it to work so bad, I kind of held on too long, and eventually
Mm.
he got some type of a strange illness that caused his attendance to be so bad that I had to actually fire him. And by that point, though, the business it was about to be a problem, and I had to come back and work the 14-hour days. I had actually my wife, who doesn't work in the business, had to come alongside and work for about 6 months, and we pulled it back up out of the ditch again. And I was able to at that point I was at a mindset where no matter what it costs, I'm going to get some qualified people that have the skills, the capacity, the experience to do this, that have been further than I had been. And that's where I turned this last corner from that low point of around 3 million whenever he left, and I got back fully involved. And that's when the really great growth just started. That year we went from 3 million to 4 million, which we had been at 4 million before. And then
Mm.
that's when we went to 4 to 8 to 11. And it's when I added a guy that was a 20-year Terminex employee. He was the general manager of a store that was doing 10 or 12 million in a nearby city. So he was further ahead than me in that way. And then shortly after that, I found in Sunday school class, believe it or not, another guy that was from corporate America. We call him Charles Schwab, or we call him New York, which he doesn't like, but he had been involved with businesses that run hundreds of people and run through hundreds of millions of dollars. And that combination of the structure that we had, the business of the business sense, and the blue collar management of the Terminex guy, which is John Godwin and Darren, and we've really been able to pour the gas on it, and it's holding together. It's not blowing to pieces.
Yeah. I mean, I just think of like, like what a blessing it was because you went from, really just kind of like a GM, somebody who you had trusted with the business, not doing, exactly what you needed. And I would imagine like a lot of people after that type of experience being very gun shy in terms of trusting other people. Although it seems like relatively quickly you were able to then onboard and really, integrate the people who made the biggest difference for you.
Yeah, well, and that's a great thought, and I think the reason that the way I overcame that, I suppose, was one is because of the I think being in that 1 to 2, 3, $4 million bracket, it's hard to attract top level talent, people that are smart and have a way to go. They're also worried about taking a chance on you. You know, it's their livelihood, their family, and they want to go work with the big outfits, the big, big organization, corporations and whatnot. So I was working with people who maybe didn't carry all those talents. And then when I was able to get John and Darren to come aboard, now I had so much more capacity. And it's easy to see that when you meet a guy that's got some capacity and you can just pick up on it. And that was one way that it's easy to trust him because I'm like, man, I can tell these guys, they know what they're doing. They're serious. They know how to drive sales. They understand metrics. They understand how to make things happen, how to lead people, all those kinds of things. And so that helpful was helpful. And besides, like I said, it was always my goal to have that kind of business. So I understand that I've got to give it away to them. And I did well when they first started though, because neither one of them had been in the HVAC and plumbing business. I worked right alongside with them 13, 14 hours a day for the first year. And then this second year, so I've been able to back off a lot. It's kind of the second, third year. I've been able to take a lot more time off because they're really getting a handle on it. But I didn't just throw them the keys the very first day and walk out. I stayed a whole entire year just shoulder to shoulder, showing them everything that I knew how to show them, giving them tons of feedback, and they're very teachable and humble people, and they wanted it to work too for the same reasons. I mean, they've staked, John, for instance, left a 25-year job to come work for me, and Darren, he could have went back to the corporate world, made whatever 300, 400, $500,000 a year, whatever they pay those guys, but he wanted to stay around. He wanted to stay around Bainbridge and not travel. He was done with that corporate life, and they wanted to work.
What do you think? What have you learned about attracting talent like that?
I think it's a situation of a momentum, and it's momentum, I guess you could say. You have to I guess I got lucky. I had been after John for years, and I knew him from high school. He actually dated my cousin.
Mm.
And so there's a long history, but he didn't come over the first time I asked him 10 or 12 years ago. He was not doing that. But eventually, I think Terminex had continued to become more and more corporate and more investor focused and stockholder focused, and then maybe even, what do they call it? Politically correct. There's a lot of
Oh
that
God.
going
Oh
into,
goodness. Yeah,
yeah, that
I know
they
what you
have
mean.
these agendas that have nothing to do with making money or killing bugs. And I think some of those things started to wear on him. And so I got lucky with John, and I also in a way kind of got lucky with Darren too. Darren was also, he was tired of some of that corporate stuff. He said one of the things that he pointed out to me I thought was funny is the first day, first few weeks or whatever he was there, we decided to do a billboard. And he's like, "Can we do a billboard?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Okay, so what do you need to do a billboard?" I'm like, "Just call them and do it." He said, "What? You don't need a slide deck." I said, "No, you don't need a
Mhm.
slide deck. Just call them up and we'll do a billboard and see what happens." But with that being said, back to the question, which is once you have a little bit of talent on board, then that's when you can get that momentum. It's really hard to get off zero. And I think I had to spend way more on the salaries than I ever felt comfortable. But I was mentally, I was there because of the things that had happened to me in the past, trying to make something out of people they just couldn't go there. I'm like, I'm gonna try something different.
Well, one thing you said is like it's tough when you're starting from zero. And something that I've identified speaking with, hundreds of business owners is like they are really the first one, like it's never really kind of zero because like they're there. And it's a matter, at least in my perspective, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it's kind of like them being the person that would then get like that first key person on board, and them being like that caliber of business owner, that caliber of person, the caliber of leader to then start, get lining up the dominoes after that. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and that's part of that building that momentum. You've got to be the first guy. A similar story that I share from time to time. I had a sales guy, and he was actually pretty good. And one day he was like, "Man, how much are you worth?" And and I told him just because I mean I'm pretty open about anything. And he said, "Man, you're lucky." I said, I'm not necessarily lucky. It's 20 some years, maybe a lifetime of good choices." And he was a guy that had not necessarily made all the right choices in life. He, you know,
Hmm.
he and I think you're right, is that those people, that the good people that will follow, they'll follow good people or people that have it together. And if you don't have it together and you can't keep it together, people that have a way to go will not stay with you. So I don't know if that's what you said, but it's what I heard.
Have you done, or what have you done in terms of building yourself up? Like, was it like kind of a, conscious effort towards personal growth? Was it a conscious effort towards training? You know, um, were you just really just lucky and blessed with an amazing work ethic that you got from your family and your father? What do you think contributed to that for you?
Those are great questions, and I do have a lot to share on that. I don't think that I'm especially talented. However, years ago, somebody invited me to be involved in Amway, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Amway, but it's a network marketing thing. And I don't
Hmm.
know if they're still how big they are now, but they introduced me to the idea of books and tapes because they understood this idea of building people. And that's where I started to learn that there are all of these self-help, self-improvement books. There's tons, thousands, tens of thousands of books of things like how to win friends and influence people, think and grow rich. Uh, I could go on and on, but there's just tons of those books, and I have read hundreds and hundreds of these books, and for the amount of books that I've read and the number of seminars that I went to, I should be a lot further ahead than I am. So I'm sure that I'm a slow learner, but that's how I think that particular area is. I have studied and studied and studied. And I went to many seminars, workshops. I paid thousands of dollars to go to workshops. Probably didn't yield that much results, but I continued to invest. And I did the same thing with our people. We spend a massive amount of money training. We're a part of Nextstar Network, and we spend a lot of money training people, and a lot of it's wasted. But it's kind of like marketing dollars. You just don't know which half is wasted sometimes. You have to put it out there, and otherwise you won't move the needle.
And so that was going to be question of mine is in terms of what have been some of the best investments that you've made either in the business or yourself. You've mentioned Nextstar. You talked a little bit about some of the seminars. You've named specific books, but is there anything in particular that you think probably had an outsize return on investment for you?
I will, and it may sound like this is a commercial for Nextstar, but Nextstar is actually the number one single thing that I think had changed our business and it was just as simple as when we joined Nextstar, we raised our prices significantly. I don't know if it would be 40% or 50% or something. It was a huge step up. And it was so much that it was really scary, like gut wrenching type scary that you think all your customers are going to club you whenever you present these prices. But after that year, we had the most profitable year we had ever had after joining Nextstar. We grew revenue and bottom, net profit, bottom line, the one that's important. And so that joining Nextstar, and then within Nextstar is just concept after concept, mentors, trainings. There's webinars. Jack Tester, who was the involved with Nextstar for many, many years, he wrote a book that really lays out the home service business. It's a very good book. Highly recommend that if you want a high level overview of it. So Nextstar was a big decision, and then just the aspect of always learning, continuous learning of something and trying to get better.
Something that I've been noticing coming up time and time and time again as I speak with very successful entrepreneurs. It's there's a dedication to learning, there's a dedication to growing, and it seems like everyone has had those stories of getting knocked down, punch in the gut, whatever you want, sucker punch, whatever you want to call it. And it's always learning. It's also like never giving up. It just that seems to be a common thread. One thing I wanted to dive into like a little bit more in like the nitty gritty, Tony, as you mentioned that John Godwin coming in from Terminex, and like what in particular, was that? I guess like my question is, it's like you have two people who really moved the needle for you. It seemed like, and they're high caliber people, great workers. Like, what exactly was it that was missing, and what exactly was it that you feel like they brought to the table?
You got really good questions. The With John, John is a relationship guy and he loves making a deal. He likes sales. And that, although I like sales and I like making money, and John, I like, I actually like things to be organized and neat and to run well, almost to a fault. I might be obsessing over some weeds growing in the in the rocks in front of the building whenever we're losing $40,000 a month and I'm out there pulling weeds, at so there's this side of me that it focuses a little bit too much on some of the details and the admin side. So
Mhm.
whenever I added John, John is he just loves to make a deal. He loves to see a sales number go up. He loves us to run the score up on the board. And so that was a really good addition. And he also has a sense about people. If he's sitting in a big meeting and something's said and somebody leans back or blinks or winces, he'll notice that and he'll come back around and be like, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on?" Well, you know what? He will see that before other people. So I think that is John's gift is he really does tune in to people and he loves to make a sales number. And since he comes from that corporate world, they live and die by a budget. If they don't like the budget 2 or 3 times in a row, 6 months, and they're looking for another guy. Even if you're a good guy, they're gonna smoke you. And I never operated like that. I would actually double down on a guy that wasn't performing and spend even more time. And so I've come from a different way. So that was good for me to learn from him. And then Darren, on the other hand, he is
If
a
Tony, if I could just dive a little bit deeper, but so two things I really want to get into. One of the things you said is him running up the scoreboard. Are there any particular things that he's done to run up the scoreboard, or that you see where you're like, oh wow, yes, I'm glad I did that, or is it more of just like constant daily vigilance and like a pressure on it? What do you think made the difference?
John is always on. I think that's one of the things is that daily vigilance. He's always aware. He's always and maybe a one behavior will be is he's focuses mainly on install HVAC install sales, and then he's over the service department, but he's in every deal. Whenever we do our daily huddles, there's 3 leads open. He can tell you the ins and outs. He's talking to those comfort consultants, we call them comfort consultants, on every deal. If they're not closing it, or if they need help negotiating it, or if they need to offer a discount or a third party close higher authority to close. He is always on. He might be in the deer stand, but if the comfort consultant calls him, he's letting the big one walk because he's going to close that deal. And that is the thing is just that constant discipline to get the deal done. That is probably one of the biggest things. And like I said, he loves it though. I mean, and I think he likes to lead people. He likes to see people move and grow. It's a passion for him. I'm not sure if that really
No,
that
that's
gets it to
great.
you.
It makes it way more for me at least. It makes it way more clear. And then the other thing that you mentioned is, when to invest more in the team members versus it sounds like when to let them go. Has how has his approach been that you found to be really successful regarding people?
He he will probably, and when we if we talk to some about Darren, I'll tell you this other a third leg of the stool. But that John will probably double down a little more like me on someone that's a marginal performer and try to really coach him up and talk to him and motivate him. He'll spend the time to try to pull a guy that's mediocre up above the bar. That's his tendency. He's not quick to just cut a guy loose. He's not.
Mm,
And I think some of that comes from the Terminex that they whenever you cut a guy loose, then the management looks at you as why did you hire the guy? You know what you have poor judgment for hiring him. You should have saw this coming. So then it causes him to maybe stay a little longer on a guy than he should.
mm. Okay. And then for Darren, what is his impact? Because it sounds like he was from a corporate background, and I would find that to be, almost nerve-wracking, bringing somebody into a completely different industry. Um, like what did you see that made you feel like this was going to be a great fit? And then what has he been able to specifically contribute?
So what I saw that made me think he was a great fit, I'm not even sure I believed he was a great fit when I hired him. But what happened was he sat in the Sunday school class and he said, I'm done with the corporate world. I'm looking for another job. And I was looking for some more help. I could tell at the time that John Godwin was not going to be able to run the entire business right by himself. And therefore, I knew I needed something else to supplement that if I was ever going to get this idea of a self-operating business. So that I knew. And so then I saw Darren, I talked to him. When he came in to interview, he came in with a suit on, a coat, which nobody hardly does that in our world.
Hmm.
And he had a little projection. I had told him some numbers, and he projected how we're going to go from what would have been at that time 5 million to I think it was 40 million. He had a spreadsheet. He brought a spreadsheet to the interview how he was going to join with me and take this thing and they really didn't have any idea how he would do it or anything, but he's like, we're going to do this. And then another guy who knows him real well at my church, I said, should I hire this guy? He said, hire him. So I just pulled the trigger. I said, okay.
Mm.
That's how I knew. Another guy that I respected said, this is your guy. So I did. And come to find out, Darren had such high income expectations. I told him, I said, hey, there's no way I'm meeting these numbers, Darren. I can't get to it. I said, you need to leave. I don't want to keep messing with you. And he said, no, 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 we're gonna make it work. So we got the pencil out and we figured out a deal.
It's
And
excellent.
then so that's how I knew he was the guy.
And then when he comes on board, what's he working on? Does he just immediately identify? Did you have a role identified beforehand? Kind of like a job description all lined up? Was it much more fluid than that? We're going to see where we can place you. What did that look like?
So what I did is I first I had to make sure that John didn't feel threatened bringing this other guy in because I kind of had this thing going on with John that it's like I'm bringing another guy in and he's thinking what the heck, what was I? So I had to solve that. And then and I set it up where John was in charge of HVAC sales and HVAC service. And so he had that side of the company, and I put Darren in there in charge of the plumbing and HVAC install and the call center. Since Darren is a little senior in experience than John, and so I gave him a little bit more than half the company, and I kept accounting and finance, and that's how we split it. And then we started. I just started training him. I started giving those different jobs because I was holding on to the plumbing and install. I was still holding all those jobs from John was had not taken them yet. So I gave all the rest of my jobs to Darren as he became more and more skilled. And something that was really neat about Darren, even before he knew all the next star KPIs and all the things that we track, he immediately started looking. He's like, where's the lever? Where's the lever for more calls? Where's the lever for conversions? Where's the lever for this? He's always looking for how to make essentially he wants to put everything into a spreadsheet. It's in every one of those is a formula, which we know in marketing, it's all formulas ultimately.
Hmm.
And you could see that corporate coming out of him. And he's building out spreadsheets and he's like, man, if we can do this, we can do that, and we can do this, and this will do that. And that's how he is. And he just never he come in, both John and Darren come in rocking 12-hour days from the beginning. They're just hammer all day long, every day. You call them on the weekends and night, they're like, "What's up?" They always have a great attitude. They're ready to go. They're just always about business. So that's how it is. And so we had Darren pushing and this spreadsheet mentality, just drive the numbers, and John with the personality and driving the sales and the art of the deal, and me trying to hold it together, maybe as a like an integrator in that book EOS, if you've read it, Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Operating system.
And that three pack there is what's been able to keep us going. And we're actually right now looking to hire a very high end marketing manager type position to try to so I can give that last job away.
I was just thinking how fortunate and valuable Nexstar must have been as you're bringing people in from outside of the industry. In terms of getting them caught up to speed, I would imagine that that must have accelerated that process a lot because it's not like you've got to come up with the operating system on your own. There's so much training, there's so many resources already. There's a support network that a hungry, tenacious person, intelligent person would be able to really, grab that information and train themselves up with it.
That is correct. And in fact, Darren, whenever before he knew Nexstar existed, right before he started, even he was saying, we're going to build these processes, we'll build these training programs. He in his mind, he was thinking that we're going to have to build all this stuff to get to this 40 million. And then as he became more and more aware of what is built out in Nexstar, which I don't know how familiar you are with it, but all of the front end customers facing materials are built out. Tons of the technical stuff is built out, and they have a lot in the way of accounting and marketing. They have individual coaches, and he was thinking everything that Nexstar has. He thought we were going to have to build it in order to get there, but that was really a nitrous oxide, where they got nitrous
Yeah,
oxide.
Nas, I know you're talking
Yeah,
about Fast and the
Nas, yeah.
Furious type
The fast,
stuff.
yeah, it was the NOS to this engine that really allowed him to jump right to the spreadsheets, just start driving around the metrics as opposed to having to build out training programs. And
Yeah,
he got right to he
that's
got right to business.
super leg up, with that. I wanted to talk a little bit about marketing, because a lot of people, I guess maybe probably before diving into the nitty gritty on marketing, I feel like a lot of people think to themselves, if only I had more leads, everything would be working out. Obviously, lead volume is super important, but what are your thoughts on, the importance to a business in terms of getting your pricing right, getting your training right, getting your cost right versus leads?
The that there's a lot in that,
Yeah.
it's I remember feeling, and I can only imagine talking to someone that would be at the 1 or 2 million mark, how overwhelming it seems to realize how many things you have to get good at in order to really run one of these kind of businesses. And I think that's my excuse for why it took me so long, because you have to get good at a lot of things in order to, and it's not about fixing air conditioners, although you have to know that too. It's not about being able to make pipes run downhill and not have bellies in them, and make sure that you don't forget the primer and that kind of stuff. You you have to know a lot, and I think that the number one thing you do is you have to make a profit, or you can't do any of it. So right out the jump, you have to get your pricing up high, regardless of how inefficient you are. If you only close 50% of your calls and you only bill out 2 hours a day, well, that's the numbers you are, and you better fix your pricing so that that covers your overhead, or you'll die before you get to fix anything else. So and that's what Nexstar teaches, and it's a lesson that I had to learn, because I often wanted to spend time trying to make it people more efficient and make them more effective. And the thing is, people are not efficient, and they're not often effective. You got to get that pricing way up higher than what you think you need when you first quit your boss and go into business for yourself. The pricing is much higher than what you think. He's not actually getting as rich as you thought he was. I don't know if that answers it, but
No, no, that's
it's
really excellent.
pricing first. It's pricing first,
Yeah,
absolutely first.
pricing, and you said something about pricing in relation to being efficient or effective. Like, what do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is, let's say if that the way I've heard it said, and the way I think is, man, if I did that job, it would only take 30 minutes. Then you hire a guy to do it, and it takes him 3 hours, especially the first time he does it. And you're like, I can't charge a customer 3 hours because that could have done it in 30 minutes. Well, the thing is that guy will not ever get down to 30 minutes, not in any time in the foreseeable future. So you can't build your pricing off of how fast you can do it or how effective are you, because you are probably, if you're a good business owner, you're probably a little bit superhuman. You're probably a little extra. And the people that you have around you are not, and they're not in it the way you're in it. They're not in it for 14 hours a day. They don't have their wife working on it, and they don't have their kids washing their truck for them. They're working a job, and it's just a part of their life. It's not their life like it is for you. And I think, I don't know if I made myself clear, but that's what I'm saying is they just, you will never get them to go like you go, and you better know that, and fix your pricing, or you'll go out of business and be mad at everybody.
That makes a lot of sense. It's very fascinating because I can relate, personally, as a business owner, looking at looking at time to complete different tasks. And I sometimes look at numbers. I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And I've been, I mean, you can look at it two ways. Like, all right, well, how can we juice it up a little bit, or do we need to just, which it sounds like you're saying, like maybe we get a little more efficiency, but perhaps it's 10% more efficiency, but we really should bank on just making sure we're pricing things right for where we're at.
Yeah, you have to, and then you from there you spin over. Once you got whatever your efficiency metrics are, your best place to go after that is sales skills, and make sure that you can build a value proposition that people will buy, and that way you can cover all the inefficiencies and effectiveness, profit, overhead, that type of thing. So you go to sales next. Once you got pricing right, go to sales. So then if you can drive those metrics up, those are the quickest ones, the quickest way to profit. And after that, you the marketing is in there, but you don't want to dump. If you, let's say Nexstar or whoever says you can get the nationwide, they can get a 65% close rate on a particular type, and you're sitting at 35, you better price at 35. But now, if you can drive yourself up to 65 close rate with your pricing the way you are, then you'll start printing money then.
Yeah, yeah,
And that then
you'll really rake it in at that
yeah, and
point.
it'll be your option if you want to discount and give that to the customer, that's just your prerogative. But you'd rather be in that scenario than the other way where you're broke
Mhm.
trying to make it work.
And based on like some other conversations we've had, I know that you've got a pretty robust marketing mix. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that? Kind of high level. Where do you guys have? Where are you guys showing up? Where are you guys generating these calls from?
We uh we do a little bit of several things. We do Google pay per click. We do direct mail, postcard type stuff. We do text messaging to our database, some emails to our database. We do a lot of community events. We go to ribbon cuttings. We go to Chamber of Commerce meetings. There's a professional women's forum that we go to where we sponsor it and we speak for a few minutes. We do a lot of different things. We have wrap vehicles, which is not a big deal anymore. Back in the day, it probably was. We have dabbled in billboards. We have dabbled in radio and TV, but currently we don't run any radio and TV. And not that I don't think they will work. It's just that we felt like we needed to spend enough in the one channel to make a difference. And those are a little more complex to to run. And I think you have a higher chance of wasting money in there. That may not be true, but that's kind of where I landed at. We do some Facebook stuff. We have boosted a few posts here and there, but we haven't really driven the Facebook to the max. That's our next area that I'm going to get into is really start driving Facebook paid ads and create some kinds of funnels and things, and really try to start dragging in the leads because we're not there at all.
Got it. A lot of um, a lot of times, it's interesting that the very first thing you mentioned was Google pay per click, and I say that because a lot of HVAC contractors, especially people around $1 million, they look at pay per click and they look at the cost per call. And I've had these conversations with people, and it's just complete sticker shock. How does anybody profitably run a business with if they're paying this much per call? And perhaps you answered it before, speaking about getting your pricing right, getting your efficiency right. How do you look at it?
The the way it works is you those guys that are in that mark, they're probably working a lot of hours. They probably have their wife helping out with the books or with this some kind of way, and they're probably not paying them. They seems like a lot of them are married to school teachers, which even provides their health insurance. That's what I have seen. And so they are actually subsidizing the customer with their prices already. And for instance, where they might sell a change out for, I'll just make up numbers. If they sell it for 8,000, it can and is being sold by their competitors for 11,000. And that's where the money's at. So if you spend $300, $400 to acquire that lead and you close every other one of them, then you're in it for maybe $800,
Mhm.
but you sold it for $3,000 more, then you're $2,000 ahead, and that's all net profit. That's a real simple, it's a WAG number. You're the marketing guy, Michael. Is that the math?
That sounds that sounds about right. Um, it seems like the biggest thing is their pricing. And one thing that I've noticed over the years is the companies that do exactly what you said. We have this a former client. They actually wound up bringing everything in house. Bunch of brothers, Michigan, really smart dudes, and right out of the gates, they had their pricing right. They were kind of salespeople. That was like really the forte. And they went from 0 to 3 million in 2 years off the back of Google Ads. And
Yeah.
it seems like, it's just the numbers can work if you have certain skills and if you have a certain mentality, I would say is the big thing, because I mean, I've seen like these forums left and right. You can go on Reddit, you can look at just even the comment section on certain videos in the industry. And there's a big like idea of, oh, why are people charging so much? They're ripping people off. And there is that like that element there. What's your perspective of that as it regards to, as it relates to pricing?
I'm glad you asked that question because I had this next story. I was wondering how I could work it in. It's someone that's struggling with pricing in the HVAC contracting world. They need to go to Walmart or Publix, whatever their Costco, whatever it is that they want. Walmart and Publix are probably better. And you go look in the Coca-Cola. Let's do the Coca-Cola aisle. What is the highest priced soft drink? Coca-Cola and Pepsi. How much shelf space do they have compared to? I'm not sure what Publix generic brand is, but in Walmart it's Sam's Cola. How much? Look at the shelf space allocated to Sam's Cola, which is cheaper than the shelf space allocated to Coca-Cola. And is Coca-Cola that much better? And not only are they selling it at higher prices, they're moving more volume. And if you say that's a fluke, go over to the laundry detergent aisle. How much shelf space is dedicated to Tide compared to all laundry detergent? All is probably one box wide. Tide has got three different brands or four different brands of Tide, and they're probably 7 to 10 boxes wide, and they are probably nearly triple the price of all, an ounce for ounce. Now, who knows if it's any better or not? If you're still not convinced, go over to the toothpaste aisle. Look at Crest and look at Aim. You're going to have 17 different flavors of Crest, and it's triple the price of what they pay for Aim. So I don't know how to answer that pricing question, but those are three examples, and there's a lot out there where people have proven that having an established brand and having a marketing strategy and having a good product, you will move more product at a higher price. That's the best I can give you, but that is a true fact. And if you're probably thinking it through, if you've ever been in a grocery store, it's amazing. The highest stuff has the most product,
One
you know?
thing, first of all, I've heard this concept explained a couple of times. I've never heard it explained in terms of the grocery aisle, which I think is very, very, yeah, that's a very powerful way to do it. I also love the fact that you can like off the top of your head name these like lower ticket, brands. Because I'm like, oh
I
yeah, I've
went
seen
my
that.
I
I
went
don't know
there.
if I'd be
Yeah.
able to like say, I'm like, I don't even look at them, but I've seen them. Now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's right. That sounds about that sounds about right. I think one of the things that people like I don't, we live in, a free society. Thank God, we're a capitalist country, and I think one of the beauties of capitalism is like people vote with their dollars, and, it is a free exchange. There's no gun to your head saying that you have to, pay this price. It's because at some point, the customer has made a decision, that it is worth this value. And, like the decision to buy Coca-Cola versus Sam's Cola or whatever it is, JC Cola. I don't know. But
When
yeah,
Dixie's is Czech Cola is When Dixie's brand, but I think they're going bankrupt, so I guess they didn't make it. But
yeah, yeah. I guess everybody's got this idea in their heads, like, they're gonna be Costco's pizza, Costco's pizza and hot dogs, where we charge you $1.50, but we make it up in volume, and it's gonna be, and I don't know. It doesn't pan. I've never seen that happen in for a home
yeah,
service business.
I've heard it said if you lose $1 per widget, you can't make it up on volume.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can't do that, and it's just it is amazing that another thing that I've heard said, and I believe this is true, would be we have plenty of HVAC technicians. We just have too many business owners. You ever heard that one?
I haven't. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's true. You have these technicians who are great technicians, and they think the boss is getting rich, so they go into business, and their whole strategy is, I'm not going to rip these people off like the boss does. And they go in there and they price themselves below what it costs to do the business. They run their business for 2 or 3 years. They make their wife work for free, maybe their kids or that type of thing. And they don't have any dental insurance. Their kids have crooked teeth, and they just muddle along there for a few years, and eventually they go back and get a job somewhere else after doing that for a year and figuring it out. Maybe they build up some credit card debt and they got a second mortgage on the house. And I'm not saying that they all do that, but I believe that is a story. Some of them have that breakthrough, kind of like what I did, I suppose, is you realize, man, you just can't pound any more efficiency out of this thing. You're going to have to change your pricing structure. And that's why I say that a lot of these technicians went into business and never learned, never became a business person.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've had many conversations, with people who aren't business owners yet. And the reason why I would say that is because I believe that those people can be made. There I'm some. I mean, obviously, like there's some people where you see like this guy was born to be a business owner, and it's just like whoa, right out the gates, the operating system was there, But I do believe, and that what one man can do, another man can do, and that's why I'm such a strong advocate for really great training. And it sounds like you've seen for yourself even the benefits of that training. And as you said, you need to learn to get good at so many different things. And I feel like that might be the transformation from technician to business owner. It's that process of learning all of those things. And hopefully they do that, and it's like their kids' teeth don't get too crooked in the process. Hopefully
Yeah.
go a little bit faster.
Well, and I say that facetiously, but the idea is, well, son, we don't have any money for braces, because I'm out here giving it away to the whole community, and I can't take care of what my responsibilities are here at the house, and that's the idea. And I know I'm over exaggerating a little bit, and I surely wouldn't want to be offensive to anybody, but I know there are
No,
probably people out there, and maybe people like what you said you've talked to, they just can't, they don't make decisions with a calculator, and that's where they're getting hung. And if they could have a breakthrough, it'd be
that'll be
better for
where
all
it
of
where
us.
it is. I mean, Tony, this has been such an amazing conversation. I wanted to talk about one more thing as kind of like a last subject, which is really the impact of serving the community. One of the things on your website, which is want to make sure, which is well, it's Cooper's Heating and Air, but it's also callcoopers.com, right? Or call.
Yeah, the website is called coopers.com. We were originally heating and air for the first 20 years, and then we added plumbing the last 3 or 4. So we
Mhm.
have some places you'll see our original domain is heating and air, but maybe that's what's confusing you. But we have a what do you call an alias or something that's called Coopers that we publish because
EVA.
now
Yeah.
we can add electrical, pest control, roofing, tuxedo rental, whatever we want, you know.
Tuxedo rental.
Whatever.
It, the reason I brought up, callcooper.com uh, is that there's a video on your website, and your beautiful wife, she's on the site and she's speaking at a conference, and she's giving the story of how you guys met, which is amazing. And she also talks about really kind of like your character in a really amazing way. I I think I've heard very people way smarter than me say the best decision you can ever make is who you got married to, and I'm a big believer in that. I mean, clearly, you made a really good choice. It's wonderful when you see a partner speaking about their their husband like that. But one of the things she had mentioned is generosity, and I got a strong sense that you guys are really, dedicated to giving back to the community. I wanted to ask you, what are what's kind of your philosophy that way? How has how have you seen that, play out with your business? I believe that whatever you give, like you tend to get that kind of tenfold. What have you seen there?
In that video, she talked something I think about the food bank and some different things. We gave an air conditioner to a women's shelter, and it's a situation that if you don't have resources, then you can't help out, and that ties back to this idea of more technicians and business owners. It's if you don't have anything to give, then you can't. And so there's that side of it. I'm highly involved in my church. We give a lot of money to the church directly and to different missions. We sponsor those. I don't know if you depending on how there's people that there are children in other countries that need extra assistance. We sponsor for those children, and we do a lot of different things like that. And then I feel like one of the major things that helps our community directly is we hire people, and the vast majority of our employees were grown into the trades, and we have gotten people into the trades that weren't there, and within a year or two are making well above average incomes in our area, and probably in the United States for that matter. And that's something that I feel like is it's one of the proudest things that I have is the people that inside the business that we've been able to grow who didn't there's one of the best stories is there's a guy that was military, got out, kind of got lost his way. He said he was sleeping in his car for a while. He's been with us for about 2 years now, and he's making over $100,000 a year, and that's pretty cool. And he was not a plumber before, and he's a good guy. He's not slick or slimy. You don't get a feel like that when you're around him. So that's something that we do. And we people call us, the schools for the yearbooks and things like that, and we probably do get a little bit of benefit from that. So those are some things that we do, and I don't know, we
I
probably
think
should do more.
no, I really love that answer because it's interesting. It's like what's more compassionate, like giving somebody a meal or like giving somebody a fish or teaching them how to fish, and that's part of what I heard there is, it's the impact that you've had in terms of generosity, in terms of contribution, in a lot of ways has been giving people skills and a platform for which to use those skills.
Yeah, well, we definitely have done that. We've like I said before, we've trained a lot of people that blew up and that never did anything. I don't know. You may edit this out of the video, so I'll leave you. But I felt like that I got really good at making chicken soup out of chicken shit over the years. Really, the sometimes the caliber of people that we have had to go to market with is not what I was the proudest of, but we, through training and leadership and motivation and accountability and just sheer determination, we're able to get through it. So like I said, you can
You
pull
know,
that out
it
if you want.
that is something, that's something, Tony, that I'm that I'm learning even more about. Even with my own business, I'm very, very proud of the people that are on our team. But we have somebody on our team who comes from this like startup environment, with like funded startups, like this, big companies with, millions of dollars of funding, and, all the people are like Harvard graduates and things like that. And it's very, very fascinating because, one of the things that I've learned is, it's almost like, yeah, all of this would work if we had just one great person right here, and my mentality is actually kind of similar to yours, has always been, we could train them up, we could get them there.
We
And
can drive it. We can do it. We can do it.
yeah, yeah. And
And that's
he's just
actually
like,
generally that's generally the wrong answer. You need to have the basics before you start dumping money into them. And I've learned that part. But
yeah.
sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, no, no. That was pretty much it. And I think that's a wonderful, place to close out. Tony, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your generosity of sharing your experiences. I know that it's going to help a lot of people, both as an aspiration, because so many people are looking to do what you've done. And then also I think encouragement, knowing that yeah, sometimes you have to walk through some very difficult days, in order to get there. So I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to end with in terms of ways people could contact you? Anything else that you'd like to say?
Well, I mean, if someone wanted to contact me, they could. I guess my email would be the best thing, Tony@callcoopers.com. And we didn't touch on this, and maybe I don't know if you'll put it somewhere else, but something that I am especially proud of is the fact that the market that we're in, you look up Bainbridge, Georgia, the county I think is 40,000 people at the most. And if you add Tallahassee, I think Leon County, which is Tallahassee County, is 200,000. Our entire market area, which covers a ton of counties, maybe seven, eight, or 10, is only maybe 500,000 people or so. It's not like that we're doing this in a major metro area where there's a million people in a single county. So we've done it, but uh, it's a lot of hard work. But I don't use the fact that you're in a rural area for your excuse for not being a high performer.
Do you think it would have been easier in another area?
Every time I see somebody that's further ahead than me, that's where I want to retreat to, and and play my victim mentality. Is man, if I was in Jacksonville, if I was in Jupiter, Florida, I won't say that, but that's not the right way to talk to yourself.
There's
So I
always
don't.
there's always a way. There's always a way.
Yeah, there's another thing that says you shouldn't play the comparison game because it'll make you feel smug or make you feel small. It's just not a thing you should do.
It'll make you feel what versus small?
Smug,
S-
smug or small.
It'll make you feel smug or small. Either way, it ain't good.
It ain't good. So you shouldn't really play that game. So, run your own race, but it can be done in a small town. That was probably the point of that is it can be done in a smaller geography.
What about if the geography, what if it's like a very like impoverished area? What if like, like, because so many a big part of this was getting the pricing right. What if it's an area where, the median income is just significantly lower than the
Look
national?
at look up Bainbridge is what I would say. And there's probably some lower than us. I like to say we're in the armpit of the South down here, and Green Sky fired us because we had too many declines. They thought that we were not a place that they wanted to be doing deals. So we don't have that going for us either. So you can
And you
take
still
that
make it
excuse.
work.
Yeah, take that excuse away. That one of the tips on that is get three or four or five credit companies, have tiers, and every customer chase them all the way down to the bottom on those, even leasing programs, things like that. Those are ways to help overcome that. We're very good at offering multiple lines of financing.
That's
It's
excellent.
it's a thing. It's a weird thing that some days Synchrony will do a deal worth 20,000 bucks for a guy, and let's say Green Sky or Service Finance won't pick them up at all. Or in the next month, it'll be vice versa. You run them on
Hmm.
both people. One guy will approve them for 7,000, the other guy approves them for 40,000. So I think they have financial goals and metrics that change by the month. So you shouldn't think, well, so and so Goodleap always picks them up. Well, if they don't, that don't mean you're done. You keep going. You're gonna run Synchrony, you're gonna run Ally, you're gonna run whoever it is, Turns if you have to. They're releasing or other second look companies, Minecraft. You just gotta run them. That's what you do in the impoverished area where they're not all 720 FICO scores.
I'm so glad that we got to cover that last bit because I think I'm going to put that, probably right at the top, how to hit these numbers, even if you're in this, this type of area. Um, it's very easy to come up with excuses, and you just got to, there's a way. And that's very great actionable advice about how people can overcome it.
Yeah. Now there's so many things you just can't. Just don't lay there and take it, man. You got to get out and fight. And it hurts sometimes because you want it to be somebody else's fault so bad.
Wouldn't that be nice? It was,
Mhm.
wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, I was right. I was perfect all along. It was just all these other people.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's,
Tony,
it,
I wanted to say thank you. Once again, this has been tremendous. I really appreciate the time. It's been a really great learning and learning from you, learning about you. And you know, what'd you say, 25 cubed here in
that's right.
2025.
2025 cubed. Yeah, we have to put it on the calendar for a podcast like January 15th, so we can see whether this is prophetic or not.
Yeah. It sounds excellent. We'll catch you next year.
All right.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
Michael.